Professor Birch. Professor Birch from Hoen's Little Root Town is what happens when you combine a nature documentary host with actual scientific credentials. Introduced in Ruby, Sapphire, and Emerald, Birch broke the mold of lab-bound researchers by taking his studies directly into the field. While Oak was content cataloging Pokémon from his comfortable laboratory, Birch was out there getting chased by wild Pokémon, sometimes literally running for his life when you first meet him. His research motto might as well be "Science is a contact sport." His specialty lies in studying Pokémon habitats and how these creatures interact with their natural environments. Birch's research focuses on behavioral patterns, migration routes, and ecological relationships, providing crucial insights into how Pokémon actually live rather than just how they battle. His approach emphasizes the importance of understanding Pokémon in their natural state, which was revolutionary for a series that primarily focused on capturing and training these creatures. Imagine that, studying animals in the wild instead of in tiny balls. Birch's fieldwork has led to groundbreaking discoveries about ecosystem dynamics in Hoenn. His studies of the relationship between Beautifly and Dustox revealed complex pollination networks that maintain the region's diverse flora. He was also the first to document how weather patterns affect Pokémon behavior, noting that certain species become more active during specific atmospheric conditions, research that proved invaluable for trainers and conservationists alike. What makes Birch particularly memorable is his down-to-earth personality and willingness to get his hands dirty, or in his case get chased by an angry Poochyena. He's the kind of professor who believes the best research happens outside the laboratory, preferably with a good pair of running shoes and maybe some pepper spray for aggressive Zigzagoon. Professor Elm. Taking over from Oak in the Johto region, Professor Elm embodies the stereotype of the brilliant but scatterbrained scientist. Introduced in Gold, Silver, and Crystal, Elm is so focused on his research that he often forgets basic things like eating or sleeping, a relatable trait for anyone who's ever gotten lost in their work. His specialty centers on Pokémon evolution and breeding, fields that would fundamentally change how trainers understood their partners. Elm was the first to seriously study how friendship affects evolution, introducing mechanics that showed the emotional bond between trainer and Pokémon could trigger physical changes. This wasn't just academic theory either, it had real implications of how trainers raised their teams. His research revealed that Pokémon like Golbat could only evolve into Crobat when they experienced genuine affection from their trainers, suggesting that evolution isn't purely biological, but also psychological and emotional. He also pioneered the study of Pokémon eggs, discovering how these creatures reproduce and developing the incubation techniques that every trainer now takes for granted. Elm's breeding research revealed that certain species could only produce offspring under specific conditions, and that genetic traits could be passed down through generations in predictable patterns. His work laid the foundation for modern competitive breeding programs and helped establish ethical guidelines for Pokémon reproduction, though he's still working on guidelines for professors who forget to eat while staring at eggs all day. Perhaps most importantly, Elm introduced time-based evolution mechanics, showing that some Pokémon would only evolve at specific times of day. This discovery revealed that the natural world's rhythms played a crucial role in Pokémon development, connecting biological processes to environmental factors in ways that previous research had missed. His studies on Eevee's evolution patterns became the gold standard for understanding how external factors influence genetic expression. Elm's absent-minded nature often leads to comedic situations. He's been known to spend hours looking for his glasses while they're on his head, or to forget that he assigned important tasks to research assistants. However, this scattered approach to daily life masks a brilliant scientific mind that makes connections others miss. His laboratory is famously chaotic, with half-finished experiments covering every surface, but somehow he always knows exactly where to find the specific data he needs. It's like organized chaos, except the organized part is purely theoretical. Professor Juniper. Professor Juniper holds a special place in Pokémon history as the first female professor in the main series, introduced in Black and White. Based in New Verna Town in the Unova region, she tackles perhaps the most fundamental question in Pokémon science. Where do Pokémon actually come from? While other professors studied how Pokémon live and evolve, Juniper wanted to understand why they exist at all, a question that probably keeps her up at night, assuming she can't stop thinking about it long enough to sleep. Her research philosophy reflects Univa's central themes of truth versus ideals, encouraging trainers to question accepted knowledge and seek deeper understanding. Juniper doesn't just hand out Pokédexes, she challenges new trainers to think critically about what they observe and to form their own theories about the nature of Pokémon existence. Juniper's work on Pokémon origins led her to investigate ancient fossil records, geological formations, and even meteorite impact sites. Her studies suggest that Pokémon may have originated from multiple sources, some evolving naturally on Earth and others potentially arriving from space, and still others emerging from unknown dimensions or energy fields. This multi-origin theory challenged the prevailing single-source hypothesis that dominated earlier research. Basically, she proved that Pokémon have more complicated family trees than European royalty. Her studies of legendary Pokémon proved particularly groundbreaking. Juniper proposed that these powerful beings might represent evolutionary endpoints, creatures so advanced that they transcend normal biological limitations. Her work with the legendary dragons Reshiram and Zekrom revealed that these Pokémon embody abstract concepts like truth and ideals, suggesting that consciousness and belief might play a role in Pokémon development that scientists had previously overlooked. As the daughter of Cedric Juniper, she represents a generational evolution in Pokémon research, bringing fresh perspectives to age-old questions. Her family's research tradition spans decades, but Juniper refuses to simply continue her father's work. Instead, she challenges his conclusions and develops her own methodologies. This sometimes leads to heated scientific debates at family dinners, but also pushes both researchers to refine their theories. Family game night must be absolutely terrifying. Professor Kukui. Professor Kukui from Alola's Melemele Island redefined what it means to be a Pokémon professor. Introduced in Sun and Moon, he's maybe the only professor who's more likely to be found shirtless on a beach than in a laboratory coat. His specialty focuses on Pokémon moves and battle mechanics, studying how different attacks affect Pokémon under various conditions and environments, research that apparently requires optimal vitamin D levels and a perpetual tan. What makes Kukui unique is his hands-on approach to research, and by hands-on, we mean he literally lets Pokémon attack him to study their moves' effects. This dedication to experimental learning explains both his impressive tan and his intimate knowledge of how every type of a Pokémon attack feels. He can tell you exactly what it's like to be hit by a Thunderbolt, how much a Flame Wheel burns, and why you should never volunteer to test Sludge Bomb under any circumstances. Kukui's research methodology involves detailed physiological monitoring during move execution, measuring everything from energy expenditure to psychological impact on both user and target. His laboratory contains sophisticated equipment for analyzing move power, accuracy variations under different conditions, and the biomechanical processes that allow Pokémon to perform seemingly impossible attacks. His data on Z moves proved particularly valuable, revealing how these powerful techniques channel natural energy through crystalline focuses. His insurance premiums must be absolutely astronomical, come to think of it. He's also the founder of Alola's Pokémon League and secretly operates as the Masked Royal, a wrestling persona that promotes competitive battling throughout the region. This dual identity allows him to observe trainer Pokémon dynamics from multiple perspectives, as an academic researcher, as a league organizer, and as a masked wrestler who definitely doesn't fool anyone with his secret identity. His wife Burnett is remarkably patient about his tendency to disappear for research that coincidentally corresponds with wrestling matches. Kukui's dual role as professor and champion breaks traditional boundaries, showing that academic research and practical application can enhance each other. His belief that Pokémon battles strengthen the bond between trainer and partner makes him as much a philosopher as a scientist. His research proved that battle intensity correlates with emotional bonding, suggesting that controlled conflict actually deepens relationships rather than harming them. Plus, he's one of the few professors who will actually battle you as the final champion, teaching us all that sometimes the best way to understand Pokémon moves is to experience them firsthand, preferably while wearing protective gear and having your interdimensional physicist wife on standby with medical equipment. Professor Laventon. Professor Laventon presents a unique case in Pokemon academia, serving as the professor figure in Pokemon Legends Arceus. Working in the Hisui region, ancient Sinnoh, during a time when the relationship between humans and Pokemon was far more primitive and dangerous, Laventon represents the early foundations of Pokemon research. He's studying creatures that most people of his era consider mystical beings or dangerous monsters, which makes his daily commute significantly more hazardous than most modern professors experience. His research focuses on basic Pokemon ecology and behavior, documenting species that future generations will take for granted. What we consider elementary knowledge about Pokemon types, habitats, and temperaments represents cutting-edge discoveries in Laventon's time period. He's working without the benefit of modern Pokeball technology, advanced scientific instruments, or even basic safety protocols that contemporary professors enjoy, making every field observation a potential life or death situation. His job description probably includes may be eaten by research subjects as a standard disclaimer. Laventon's work is particularly challenging because he's essentially creating the scientific language used to describe Pokemon phenomena. Modern professors can reference centuries of accumulated knowledge, but Laventon has to invent terminology, classification systems, and research methodologies from scratch. His detailed field notes on alpha Pokemon, unusually large and aggressive specimens, provided the foundation for later studies on size variation and territorial behavior. His collaboration with the Galaxy Expedition team represents one of the first organized efforts to study Pokemon systematically rather than simply avoiding or exploiting them. Laventon's patient observation techniques and emphasis on non-violent data collection established ethical research standards that influenced generations of future professors. His work proved that understanding Pokemon behavior was more effective than fearing it. Revolutionary thinking for an era when most people's Pokemon research consisted of run away and hope it doesn't follow you home. The professor's research on space-time distortions revealed that temporal anomalies weren't just dangerous curiosities, but potential windows into Pokemon evolution and dimensional mechanics. His careful documentation of these phenomena provided crucial data that would later inform professors like Burnett in her interdimensional research. Laventon essentially discovered that reality itself could be unstable around certain Pokemon, a finding that must have made peer review rather difficult. Professor Magnolia. Professor Magnolia from the Galar region represents the wise elder stateswoman of Pokemon science. Introduced in Sword and Shield, she specializes in studying Dynamax and Gigantamax phenomena, the mysterious energy that allows Pokemon to grow to kaiju-like proportions during battles. Her research focuses on Galar particles, the environmental factors that enable these transformations, and their connection to the region's unique history, because someone needed to figure out why Pokemon occasionally decided to cosplay as skyscrapers. Though she takes a more reserved role compared to previous professors, Magnolia's expertise proves crucial for understanding the intersection between ancient legendary events and modern battling techniques. Her studies reveal that Dynamax energy isn't just a convenient battle mechanic, it's tied to fundamental forces that shaped Galar's landscape and ecosystem over millennia. Her research traced the energy's origin to Eternatus, an extraterrestrial Pokemon whose arrival 3,000 years ago fundamentally altered the region's physical properties. Magnolia's work on Galar particles represents some of the most advanced energy research in the Pokemon world. Her laboratory contains sophisticated equipment for measuring particle density, energy flow patterns, and the biomechanical processes that allow Pokemon to safely channel such massive power increases. Her discovery that certain locations naturally concentrate these particles explained why Dynamax only works in specific areas, power spots that essentially function as natural amplifiers. She found that some Pokemon have a giant mode button, which raises important questions about game balance in the natural world. What makes Magnolia particularly endearing is her decision to pass the torch to her granddaughter Sonia, recognizing that fresh perspectives often lead to breakthrough discoveries. She represents the wisdom that comes with decades of research while acknowledging that science progresses best when experienced researchers mentor the next generation. Her patient guidance helped Sonia develop from an uncertain assistant into a confident researcher capable of tackling Galar's most complex historical mysteries. Plus, she probably enjoys watching Sonia deal with the same research frustrations she once experienced. Academic revenge at its finest. Professor Oak. Professor Oak stands as the grandfather of all Pokémon professors, literally in Blue's case, figuratively for the entire franchise. Based in Pallet Town and introduced in the original Red, Blue, and Yellow games, Oak established the template that all future professors would follow. The wise mentor who provides starter Pokemon, research tools, and gentle guidance to young trainers about to embark on dangerous journeys through monster-infested wilderness. Oak's specialty lies in Pokemon ecology and the relationships between humans and Pokemon. He was the first to theorize that strong emotional bonds could enhance both trainer and Pokemon abilities, a concept that became central to the entire franchise. His creation of the Pokédex revolutionized how trainers catalog and understand the creatures they encounter, turning random encounters into scientific observations. He basically invented Pokemon Wikipedia, except it requires you to physically touch every single entry to unlock it, but I digress. Beyond his research contributions, Oak represents the warm, grandfatherly figure who balances scientific rigor with genuine care for young trainers. His quirky poems and lighthearted personality made him immediately beloved, while his foundational research established the scientific framework that every subsequent professor would build upon. Oak shows that the best teachers combine knowledge with kindness, even when they're sending 10-year-olds to wrestle with dragons. His ethics approval forms must be very fascinating to read, no? Professor Rowan. Professor Rowan from Sinnoh's Sand Gem Town brings a stern intellectual gravitas to Pokemon research that was both refreshing and a little intimidating. Introduced in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, Rowan specializes in evolutionary theory, particularly focusing on why Pokemon evolve and how these transformations affect their fundamental nature and abilities. His research delves deeper into evolution than previous professors, examining not just the triggers that cause evolutionary change, but the underlying mechanisms that make such dramatic transformations possible. Rowan's work connects evolutionary biology to the broader cosmological themes that define Sinnoh, particularly the region's creation mythology involving Dialga, Palkia, and Arceus. He's basically trying to figure out how pocket monsters relate to literal gods, so no pressure at all there. Rowan's serious demeanor and high standards make him one of the most respected minds in Pokemon science, having mentored both Professor Oak and Professor Juniper at different points in their careers. He represents the bridge between traditional academic rigor and the mystical elements that increasingly define Pokemon lore. Despite his stern exterior, Rowan values dedication and curiosity above all else, proving that the best professors challenge their students to exceed their own expectations. But if you ask us, his idea of a motivational speech probably includes statistics and footnotes. Professor Sada. Professor Sada represents one of the most controversial figures in Pokemon science, serving as the version-exclusive professor in Pokemon Scarlet. Her name derives from pasado, or Spanish for past, reflecting her obsession with uncovering secrets from prehistoric eras. Based in Paldea's mysterious Area Zero, Sada dedicates her research to paradox Pokemon, creatures that appear to be ancient versions of modern species. Sada's work challenges fundamental assumptions about evolution, time, and the nature of reality itself. Her paradox Pokemon specimens suggest that either time travel is possible, parallel evolution occurred on an impossible scale, or something far stranger is happening in Area Zero's depths. Her laboratory combines ancient artifacts with cutting-edge technology, embodying the temporal contradictions that define her research. Her decorating style can best be described as caveman meets NASA. The tragic aspect of Sada's story lies in her ultimate fate. Her obsession with the past leads her to create an AI duplicate of herself to continue the research after her death. Talk about dedication to the job. Most people just leave detailed notes for their replacements, but she literally programmed her own workaholic tendencies into artificial intelligence, which seems like a uniquely modern way to haunt your colleagues. Professor Sonia. Professor Sonia starts as Magnolia's research assistant, but evolves into Galar's official professor, making her unique among her peers for her character development throughout the games. Unlike professors who focus on biology or battle mechanics, Sonia specializes in historical research, investigating ancient legends and forgotten truths about Galar's past. Her transformation from uncertain assistant to confident researcher mirrors the player's own journey, making her one of the most relatable professor figures in the series. Sonia's work involves piecing together fragments of ancient texts, tapestries, and oral traditions to uncover the real story behind legendary Pokemon like Zacian and Zamazenta, as well as the catastrophic event known as the Darkest Day. She's basically doing a PhD in mythology while her grandmother keeps asking when she'll get a real job. What makes Sonia particularly compelling is her willingness to challenge accepted historical narratives and seek uncomfortable truths. Her research reveals that many official histories are incomplete or deliberately misleading, showing that sometimes the most important discoveries come from questioning what everyone assumes to be true. She proves that effective science requires not just observation and experimentation, but also the courage to challenge established orthodoxy when evidence points in new directions. She's essentially a historical mythbuster, but with better hair. Professor Sycamore. Professor Sycamore from Kalos's Lumio City brought unprecedented style and charisma to Pokemon research. Introduced in X and Y, this dapper professor specializes in Mega Evolution, a temporary transformation that unlocks hidden potential in certain Pokemon through the power of trainer-Pokemon bonds. If regular evolution wasn't complicated enough, Sycamore decided to study evolution that happens and then unhappens mid-battle. His research focuses on the emotional and spiritual connections between trainers and their Pokemon, showing that the strongest transformations occur when both partners are completely synchronized. This wasn't just theoretical work. Sycamore actively battled trainers to test his theories. He's the only professor who considers getting challenged to battle as peer review for his research papers. Sycamore embodies Kalos's themes of beauty, connection, and artistic expression, approaching science with passion and flair rather than dry academic detachment. He's probably the only professor who could make a research presentation feel like a fashion show. Professor Turo. Professor Turo serves as Sada's counterpart in Pokemon Violet, representing the other extreme of temporal obsession. His name comes from Futuro, Spanish for future, and his research focuses on paradox Pokemon that appear to be hyper-evolved, mechanized versions of familiar species. Where Sada looked backward, Toro pushes relentlessly forward into uncharted technological territory. Based in the same mysterious Area Zero as Sada, Toro's laboratory resembles something from a science fiction movie, filled with sleek surfaces, holographic displays, and technology that seems decades ahead of anything else in the Pokemon world. His Paradox Pokemon specimens suggest either time travel, parallel evolution, or artificial enhancement on an unprecedented scale. His lab probably has a "No Cavemen Allowed" sign just to spite his interdimensional colleague. Like Sada, Toro's story ends tragically, with his obsession leading him to create an AI duplicate before his death. Apparently, both professors took work-life balance to mean replace your life with work entirely, then replace yourself with an AI to keep working. Their shared fate raises more important questions about scientific ethics and whether anyone bothered to check their browser history before activating the AIs. From Oak's foundational ecology research to Sada and Toro's reality-bending temporal studies, Pokemon professors have consistently pushed the boundaries of scientific understanding. Each professor reflects the region's unique characteristics while contributing specialized knowledge that expands our comprehension of the Pokemon world. They've evolved from simple starter distributors into complex characters dealing with interdimensional rifts, ancient mysteries, and the fundamental nature of existence itself. The job requirements have definitely escalated beyond must be good with children and have basic knowledge of local wildlife. What makes these professors truly remarkable is their shared commitment to knowledge and their willingness to mentor the next generation of trainers. Whether they're studying basic habitat patterns or exploring parallel dimensions, each professor embodies the scientific spirit of curiosity, observation, and discovery. They prove that in a world filled with creatures that can control time, space, and reality itself, the most powerful tool remains an inquiring mind and the courage to ask difficult questions. Though a good insurance policy and emergency evacuation plan probably doesn't hurt either.